On today's show, the Capitals formally announce the starting date of training camp. And for the Capitals, Chris Patrick, Spencer Carberry, there is a lot to prove.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. I've covered the Capitals for the last 3 seasons for Locked On and various other outlets before that. I'm also the host of the weekly show called The Capitals Minute Cast, available wherever you find your podcasts. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, we talk about how the date is here. The Capitals formally announce the start of training camp. They announced the start of rookie camp. Also to mention the start of the preseason and the first game of the season. The train is definitely going down the tracks towards the start of the Capital season. There is a lot to be excited about. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We'll talk about challenges surrounding the Capitals. Former GM Brian McClellan talked about the risky moves that were made this past summer here, the addition of Pierre-Luc Dubois. How is Spencer Carberry, Chris Patrick, and the Capitals, how are they going to overcome? We'll talk about that. And then in the final segment, we'll talk about how the Capitals will need to see a lot from their big name players. Alex Ovechkin, Pierre-Luc Dubois, Andrew Mangiapane, they need to bring it. Just to get it going here, though, we'll talk about those important dates that were formally announced today. For the longest time, it's like, well, the start of training camp is going to be in mid-September sometime, but it was formally announced today, and it's a good feeling as a Capitals fan as we are headed in the direction of the start of the Capitals season. You see that the NFL season is starting soon here, and soon the feeling of fall in the air. This is a special time of season for a hockey fan, more particularly a Capitals fan, as the Capitals are looking for a better season than the season before. They made it to the playoffs, which was a victory, but I have grander plans for them this next coming season. I want to see them make a deep push. And I think they're going to be able to do that with some big additions, PLD, Mangiapane, hopefully Ovechkin can hit the ground running in the first game of the season. Tom Wilson can bring his physical presence. We are looking for a whole lot more. And I think the familiarity is there, because Spencer Carberry, this is going to be his second year at the helm, that these systems aren't going to seem so foreign anymore. And I think the Capitals will hit the ground running. But as far as those big dates were announced, these are the dates. These are the moments that we've been waiting for. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say all summer. The Capitals have announced the dates for their upcoming rookie and training camps, signaling the anticipation of the new season. The training camp will start on Thursday, September 19th, with the first on-ice session and media day. Prior to this, veteran players will undergo off-ice testing. The full training camp roster will be revealed just before the start of the season. And a lot of question marks surrounding the Capitals. If you are an everydayer of the show, I spoke of those. Jacob Vrana, is he going to actually make the team? We know that he's on a PTO. Even Miroshnichenko, is he going to start the season in the NHL or the AHL? Duhaime and Radish, these depth moves, I guess I'm going to say, third and fourth liners. Not to mention the players that played in Hershey last year, Ethan Frank, Pierre-Luc Dubois. Are any of those players going to get a promotion? It is an exciting time of year and a lot of storylines to follow. And of course, Locked On Capitals will have you covered the entire way. Preseason action will begin at home on Sunday, September 22nd, as the Caps face off against the Flyers. The team will use the camp and preseason games to evaluate players and finalize the 23-man roster for the regular season opener on Saturday, October 12th against the New Jersey Devils. Again, it is starting to feel real, isn't it, Capitals fans, that hockey is right around the corner. I haven't been excited in quite a while as I am for this training camp because there is a lot in the air. Some big additions, more additions made this past off season than the Capitals have done in quite some time. And I want to see how that all gels and what kind of chemistry there is between those players. Talking about informal skates and player participation, currently the team is actively engaged in informal skates at MedStar. A mix of current and former roster players, along with junior players, are participating in player-led workouts to prepare for the training camp. Notable participants include Pierre-Luc Dubois, John Carlson, Alex Alexiev, Matt Roy, Logan Thompson, Jacob Chikrin, Alexei Protas, and Jacob Vrana. So some big name players there, of course, and some young talent there. You take a look at Alex Alexiev, kind of on the outside looking in. Where does he all fit in? If you take a look at the D pairings, how I have them sketched out and how a lot of other NHL and beat writers have it sketched out, Alex Alexiev does not fit in. Not to say it's not possible, not to say that he doesn't play that well in training camp, that he bumps someone out of position, but a lot of storylines to follow, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Talking about those new additions, though, and player activities as the Capitals gear up for the start of training camp, familiar faces are returning to the ice for informal skates and practice at MedStar. Recently, though, big name Nick Dowd and prospect Zach Funk, along with former Capitals winger Joe Snively, of course, now with the Red Wings, joined the team's on-ice workouts. It's kind of one of those, funny things that, former Caps at camp, Lars Eller, Anthony Mantha, those kind of players that aren't a part of the Capitals anymore were at camp. Kind of has to be a little bit awkward or maybe familiar for them. I'm guessing that they still have homes in the DC area, and that is why they're working out here. But talking about players that have really popped off the page just in a brief time here during one of the recent skates, Nick Dowd demonstrated great energy by leading a scrimmage and an intense 200-foot skating work. Pierre-Luc Dubois displayed excellent puck control and orchestrated multiple odd man rushes while also converting breakaway chances against Logan Thompson. Another big piece, the net minding tandem for the Capitals, Logan Thompson, Charlie Lindgren, who is going to reign supreme as the number one. Or is it going to be like Spencer Carberry said, kind of a 1A type situation? It's going to be fun to see how the net minding situation all shakes out. Talking about player updates, Jacob Chikrin is currently away, but is expected to return in a few days. And even Miroshnichenko is set to arrive this week. Miro will be on the ice on Wednesday in Arlington for the NHLPA Rookie Showcase. It's also anticipated that Alex Ovechkin will return to the United States shortly, according to his agent. So, that's the exciting part, is that once Ovi's there, once Wilson, once the big guns are there, then the rubber is really meeting the road, and we are well on our way to Capitals hockey. But the young players are looking for more as well. Draft picks, prospects, looking to make a name for themselves. The Capitals will be hosting their annual rookie camp from September 13th through 16th at the U.S. Naval Academy's McMullen Hockey Arena in Annapolis, Maryland. Prospects such as Andrew Cristol, Tarek Perisic, Zach Funk, Alexander Suzdalev, and Ilya Protas are expected to participate in the camp, with the full roster to be announced at a later date. So steps in the right direction. We at least know the start of training camp. That was the big one for me, as it was a little bit elusive there for a while. Mid-September, okay. But now we know that for sure when everything is going to get going here. So excitement as Capitals fans, as we are, like I said, well on our way to the start of the hockey season. Hit me up on Twitter at DanCaps218, at Locked On Capitals, or on YouTube, of course. Tell me what you're excited about. What do you want to see from the Capitals this season? It is going to be a fun season. That much I know for sure. So the Capitals, they made some big moves this past summer here. Pierre-Luc Dubois, Andrew Mangiapane. What challenges face the Capitals? I'll discuss straight ahead. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. So that's that's what makes Game Time easy. And it sounds funny to say buying tickets to a sporting event. Well, how is it complicated? Well, it is. To lock in at a great price, and to even find tickets for the artist, the band, the sporting event that you want, sometimes it can be difficult and confusing at the end of the day. So that is why you need Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON. NHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. Thank you for making Locked On Capitals your first listen of the day. For your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NHL podcast. Locked On NHL provides you with a national perspective on all things NHL each and every day, with national experts and local insight on every team in the league. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So that as the Capitals head into this 24-25 season, we see the end is in sight. The end. And what is Dan talking about the end? Well, the end of the Alex Ovechkin era. What do we know? That we have Alex Ovechkin for this upcoming season, the following season, and then that could be it for Alex Ovechkin as a Capital. A bit surreal, kind of have to pinch yourself. Am I living in an alternate reality? Am I dreaming? It's not the kind of dream that I want to live, as I think that the Alex Ovechkin era has been one that has seen the Capitals reach great heights. It has revolutionized hockey in the district, but the Capitals have to do something and prepare for life after the Alex Ovechkin era. The Capitals are currently in a transitional phase as they move from the Alex Ovechkin era to a new generation of talent. Following significant changes to the roster during the offseason, the team is now at a critical juncture in balancing competitiveness and rebuilding. The success of the recent acquisitions, particularly center Pierre-Luc Dubois, will be crucial as they aim for sustained success without undergoing a complete rebuild. And this is something that I've harped on, that I've spoke of ad nauseum, is that the Capitals will not do a tear it down to the studs rebuild as long as Alex Ovechkin is on the team. Should they do it? Should they even do that after Alex Ovechkin retires? It's not always a seamless transition. If you want to keep it close to home, take a look at the Nationals. They're finally making their way out of the woods of a rebuild, but it has been a tough few seasons for the Nationals. Could Capitals fans, could they stomach a rough few seasons of a rebuild? Doesn't have to go that way, but it is something to think about. And talking about management and coaching, big changes, stuff that I did not see happening. You take a look at Brian McClellan. Thought he did a good job, really knocked it out of the park this past summer here. But Chris Patrick is now the new GM. And with that, some skepticism, some criticism from some people. Was that the right move? Listen, I think that he is the perfect GM for this team right now. He knows all the ins and outs of this team. He's very familiar with Hershey, as he was the go-between between Hershey and the Capitals. He was involved in player acquisitions, and guess what? Brian McClellan, he isn't really going anywhere. He's just got an office a couple doors down, and I'm sure that he could walk to his office or pick up the phone and call him. This is an ideal situation for the Capitals, but there is still a lot of challenges. General Manager Chris Patrick has acknowledged the challenges faced during this transition, including the options of pursuing high draft picks or identifying overlooked talent. The acquisition of Pierre-Luc Dubois has 7 seasons left on his big contract. 7 seasons. Have you ever bought a car and had buyer's remorse and you're like, wow, I'm going to be paying on this thing for the next 4, 5, 6 years? I guess it's going to remain to be seen of all Pierre-Luc Dubois. Again, I'm going to lead with that positive foot. I'm going to say he's going to be better than last year. It was a one-off with the Kings. He was misutilized, underutilized. He's really going to be good. That is the hope anyway, as the Capitals took a big bite out of that apple of Pierre-Luc Dubois, as he will be on the team for the next 7 seasons. But that signifies the team's confidence in his potential and his resurgence. Coach Spencer Carberry has emphasized Dubois' determination to succeed and the coaching staff's role in his development, expressing confidence in the commitment to improvement. So you take a look at it, a lot at stake for the Capitals. I've heard different things out there about how it's going to all shake out, that it could potentially be Pierre-Luc Dubois and Tom Wilson on that first line with Alex Ovechkin, 2 huge frames out there to kind of clear the lane so Alex Ovechkin can do what he does best. And Tom Wilson, he's going to score his fair amount of goals as well. I kind of like that, but also, with that said, I wouldn't be surprised if Mangiapane and Tom Wilson kind of vacillate back and forth until they get that perfect mix. And even then, I don't think there's going to be a perfect mix. Things are going to get jumbled up and put in the blender depending on game situations. But let's talk about those off-season acquisitions. The Capitals have been active in the off-season, making several key acquisitions. They traded for forward Andrew Mangiapane from the Flames, defenseman Jacob Chikrin from the Ottawa Senators, and goalie Logan Thompson from the Golden Knights. Additionally, they added defenseman Matt Roy, as well as forwards Brandon Duhaime and Taylor Radish through free agency. So a lot of interesting storylines, isn't there, Capitals fans? And that is what has me very excited. As I spoke of, I haven't seen this amount of change in an offseason in quite some time. Will it live up to the hype that I want it to be? I'm going to hope so. I'm not going to say it's not going to work, because then, well, it's going to be a long season if you lead with that foot. All things considered, the Capitals had a bumpy ride last season, but they did the improbable and made it to the playoffs. I think with these additions, the Capitals are even in a better position. Because if you take a look at the subtractions, I'm not too bummed about any of the players that left, to be honest with you, either trade or free agency or whatever the case might be. I think the additions far outweigh the subtractions, and that is why I think the Capitals are going to be in a much better position. That is the hope. That is the prayer anyway. So when we talk about the Capitals and the changes that need to be made, one thing is glaringly apparent. The Capitals made those big moves. We need to see a lot from those players, not to mention the big name players that were already on the team. Hint, hint, Alex Ovechkin. I'll discuss straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So one of the things that Brian McClellan said that is kind of a slogan, something that I think you could kind of etch on the wall, is the moves that were made this past summer were risky moves. And some people are like, well, that was pretty cryptic. I don't really think it was that cryptic. They were moves that were made that have potential of being great, but they also have the potential of not being so great. And what am I talking about? The biggest one I just spoke of in the previous segment is Pierre-Luc Dubois, 7-year deal, a guy that has a questionable history. Again, I'm going to say it was a one-off with the Kings, but still risky. You take a look at Mangiapane, who's still looking to find the form that he had a few years ago, that they are risky moves. But with those risky moves, the Capitals did not have to mortgage the future, the farm, those kind of things. So at the end of the day, I think the Capitals made great decisions. But talking about this upcoming season and questions that remain, the team's lineup for the upcoming season is yet to be determined, with the decisions expected to be made during the training camp. There are also concerns about whether forward TJ Oshie will be able to play due to back injury that has affected him over the past 2 seasons. Again, I would be most surprised to see TJ Oshie, and at the end of the day, I hold nothing against him. One heck of a hockey player. He has his family to consider, his kids, his wife. Still a young man, all things considered. Let's worry about your life after hockey. And I know that this is something that he has done his entire life, hockey and sports in general, that it'll seem a bit foreign to walk away from the game, but you have to consider your health. And I think that as far as TJ Oshie and the Capitals, it's time to turn the page. The Capitals are anticipating a stronger lineup compared to last season and are focused on improving their offensive capabilities. I think in particular, the net minding situation, a lot better. Logan Thompson, Charlie Lindgren, that ostensibly, potentially, we won't have to deal with the stumbles that Darcy Kemper had. But let's next talk about anticipated improvement, the big things, the things to get excited about. Head coach Spencer Carberry has stressed the need for improvement, particularly in offensive capabilities, as the team finished 28th in the NHL in scoring last season, averaging 2.63 goals per game. It's surprising they made it to the playoffs in the first place. The acquisition of Dubois, Mangiapane, and Chychrun are expected to bolster the team's offensive and defensive prowess. That is the hope. But the biggest thing that can take the Capitals to the next level is for Alex Ovechkin to hit the ground running in the first game and not have that leg like he had last season, not waiting until the All-Star break to catch fire. If Ovechkin can really start and have a really great start, I think the Capitals' positive momentum can keep rolling with any, injuries or things that you can consider that way. The Washington team will be looking for Ovechkin for a strong performance in the upcoming season as he aims to break Wayne Gretzky's record. With Ovechkin's track record, Washington's success will likely depend heavily on his performance in the upcoming season. As I spoke of on the show, I think it's important not to badger Alex Ovechkin with the questions of when are you going to catch Gretzky? When are you going to catch Gretzky? I think it kind of ties his head in knots. And also, I think there are things to be hopeful for. I think that he has his equipment situation sorted out, as we know that he was sorting through a lot of different twigs this last season. It seems like he has settled on one, or that was the case at the end of the season. I guess it remains to be seen what kind of stick and equipment he's going to be using in training camp at the start of the season. But those things, in addition to the fact that it has been said that he has been working out in training quite heavily this offseason. So maybe there won't be those obstacles. Maybe he knows that the Capitals expect a lot from him, that he doesn't want to have a repeat of last season, because it has to be difficult for a player in his position to face that kind of ridicule, considering all that he's accomplished. It's easy in a vacuum to even have a poor half of a season and for people to say you're washed, that you are just a fraction of what you used to be. That has to be difficult. But those are the things that Alex Ovechkin has faced. If you take a look at his accomplishments and the accolades, those kind of things, they are tremendous. They far outweigh any little blips on the radar where he has gone through a goalless drought or these kind of things. That let's remember what makes Alex Ovechkin great. And even if he has, and I have to tell myself this as well, if he gets off to a slow start or there is a slow stretch throughout the season, let's not forget all that he's accomplished. And I know you can't live on former glory, but just knowing that if you take a look at his career in total, he always bounces back. So unless he faces a major injury, I think that he's in a good position to help this team move forward. And with the addition of Pierre-Luc Dubois, I think that on paper, what I've seen at these informal skates is that Pierre-Luc Dubois is an upgrade at the center position. Not too novel of a thing to say, I know, but so all the doubters out there that wondered if it was the right move, from what I've seen, at least at these informal skates, he looks really good. And having a great center on that first line, I think can only help Alex Ovechkin get off to a great start. I'm not here to diminish the performances by any of the other centers that played with him last season, but what I am saying is that I think with Pierre-Luc Dubois on that top line or Dylan Strome, let the best man win. I think the Capitals and Alex Ovechkin will be in the best possible situation. Listen, I want to thank you once again for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals and making it your first listen of the day. Now go check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to the Locked On NHL podcast in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.